Hi, it's Neha again. And I said I was going to be reading Harry the Homeless Puppy. Well, I accidentally returned that book to the library. So I'm going to be reading Mrs. Lane is a Pain. This one is by Dan Gutman, like the books I read before. It's the My Weirder School series, book number 2. And the picture is by Jim Paley. Look. There are 12 chapters. Chapter 1, the coolest sport ever. My name is AJ and I hate getting hit by water balloons. Did you and your friends ever have water balloon jousts? Water balloon jousting is the coolest sport ever. Especially when you joust on bikes. One time we were having a water balloon joust on the grassy field next to our school. My friend Alexia and I were the knights. We got on our bikes at opposite ends of the field. Our friends Ryan and Michael were the squirrels. Squirrels are people who help the knights. Neil, who we call the nude kid, even though he wears clothes, was the judge. He put a line of orange cones on the grass so Alexia and I wouldn't crash into each other. I put on my bike helmet. Alexia put on her helmet. Hand me my water balloon, squirrel, I told Michael. Yes, my league. There's an asterisk. It says, okay, look. There's a picture. It's AJ. He's jousting with, look. He's jousting on a bike. Looks like that. Michael handed me a big red water balloon. Ryan handed Alexia a blue water balloon at the other end of the field. Are the knights ready? Shouted Neil. Ready, I shouted. Ready, Alexia shouted. On your mark, yelled Neil. Get set. Joust! Kids, please don't try this at home. We're professionals. Alexia and I started pedaling towards each other. It's not easy to pedal a bike on the grass while you're holding a water balloon in one hand. We were getting closer to each other. I held up my water balloon, ready to let it fly. Alexia and I were 20 feet away from each other. Nail him, Alexia, shouted Ryan. You can do it, AJ, shouted Michael. It's really hard to hit somebody with a water balloon from a moving bike. You have to throw it at the exact perfect moment. Alexia and I were 5 feet away from each other. It was time. Ee-yah! I hollered. Just as I was about to let go of my water balloon, Alexia heaved her balloon. It exploded all over me. My water balloon sailed wide, missing Alexia entirely. Bam! Alexia hollered as she rode by. In your face, AJ. Alexia is the winner, shouted Neil. After that, we switched. Okay, look. There's a picture. It's a picture of AJ getting doused by a water balloon. After that, we switched places so Michael and Ryan would be knights and Alexia and I would beat their scores. It was a blast. I got nailed 3 or 4 times, but I hit Alexia a few times too. Everybody was drenched. Drenched means soaked, so wet. Was drenched and falling down laughing. We kept jousting until we ran out of water balloons. That's when the most amazing thing in the history of the world happened. I noticed that somebody was hiding behind the bushes nearby. Well, that's not the amazing part, because people hide behind bushes all the time. The amazing part was who was hiding behind the bushes. I figured the person was watching us was Andrea Young, this annoying girl in my class with curly brown hair. But it wasn't Andrea. You'll never believe in a million hundred years who was spying on us. It was Mr. Klutz, our school principal. He has no hair at all. I mean, none. He must save a lot of money on shampoo and combs. I wonder if he uses a hairdryer to dry his head. Uh-oh, I said. It's Mr. Klutz. Look, there's a picture. It's Mr. Klutz. Does he look mad they're jousting after school? I don't think so. We're in trouble now, said Ryan. Mr. Klutz came over to us. It was too late to run away. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I had to think fast. We're sorry, Mr. Klutz, I said. We won't do it again. Please don't tell our parents we were jousting with water balloons, begged Neil, the nude kid. Don't be silly, said Mr. Klutz with a big smile on his face. Okay, look, the picture shows he has a smile on his face. See? I really enjoyed watching you. In fact, you kids have given me a great idea. We have? Said Alexia. What's the great idea? Asked Michael. I'm not going to tell you, said Mr. Klutz. Please, 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 we all begged. Usually, if you say please over and over again, grown-ups will get sick of hearing it and give you whatever you want. That's the first rule of being a kid. Okay, I'll tell you my great idea, said Mr. Klutz. Yay! I'll tell you my great idea at the assembly tomorrow. Boo! Chapter 2, The Secret Grand Prize. The next morning, our class had to walk 1,100,000 miles to the all-purpose room for the assembly. Andrea was the line leader. Her crybaby friend Emily was the door holder. I don't know why they call it an assembly, because we don't put anything together. If you ask me, they should make assemblies and toys the same way. No assembly required. I sat next to Ryan and Michael. Everybody was gabbing like always, even the teachers. When Mr. Klutz climbed up on stage, he made a peace sign with his fingers, which means shut up. This is a peace sign. See? Peace. Good morning, Mr. Klutz said. I was watching some of our students playing on the field after school yesterday, and it gave me a great idea. Look, there's Mr. Klutz. He's talking. And he's talking. Maybe he's going to give us an award or something, I whispered to Ryan. That would be cool, he replied. I realize how talented you students are at elementary school, said Mr. Klutz. So I've decided that we're going to have a talent show. We're going to call it Elementary School Got Talent. What? Yay, said all the girls. Boo, said all the boys. Talent shows are for girls, I shouted. Yeah, agreed all the boys. I'm not going to be in some dumb talent show, said Ryan. Me neither, said Michael. Oh, I should mention one thing, said Mr. Klutz. The winner of the talent show will get a secret grand prize. So if none of the boys will be participating, I guess a girl will win the secret grand prize. Secret grand prize? I love secret grand prizes. Where do I sign up? I shouted. You can sign up right here in the all-purpose room after school, said Mr. Klutz. But right now, I want to introduce the woman who's going to be in charge of our talent show. She's a real professional talent coach, and her name is Mrs. Penny Lane. At that moment, the weirdest thing in the history of the world happened. A lady came out of stage. Well, that's not the weird part, because ladies come out of the stage all the time. The weird part was that she came out of the stage riding a unicycle. Not only was she riding a unicycle, but at the same time she was juggling 3 goldfish bowls with real live goldfish in them. And not only was she riding a unicycle and juggling 3 goldfish bowls, but she was also whistling Old MacDonald Had a Farm. Wow, everyone said, which is Mom upside down. It was totally amazing. Mrs. Lane is really talented. Chapter 3, The Talented Mrs. Lane. Look at the picture. Miss Lane's so talented. Chapter 3, The Talented Mrs. Lane. Mr. Klutz told us to give Mrs. Lane a round of applause. We all clapped our hands in circles like this. That's why it's called a round of applause. Howdy, y'all, said Mrs. Lane as she took a deep bow very low. She must be from Texas. People from Texas say y'all all the time. Nobody knows why. Mrs. Lane is a perfect person to run our talent show, Mr. Klutz told us. As you can see, she's very talented in herself. In fact, you may have seen her on TV. Everybody got all excited because people on TV must be really famous. Mr. Klutz asked Mrs. Lane to tell us some of the TV shows she'd been on. Well, she said, I was a contestant on America's Not Stupid, Are You Smarter Than a Turnip, America's Next Top Garbage Collector, Keeping Up with the Librarians, Who Wants to Win a Million Pizzas, Pancake Wars, Wheel of Misfortune, and Undercover Murder. Wow, everybody said again. Miss Lane is a real celebrity, said Andrea. She's famous. Mr. Klutz asked Mrs. Lane if she had any other talents. She got off the unicycle and did a handstand while singing, I've been working on the railroad. There's a picture. She's really talented. That was amazing, said Mr. Claus. You're very talented, Mrs. Lane. You are talented means many talents. I know that because every morning my mom gives me a multivitamin mean. It has 10 different vitamins. Multivitamin. It has 10 different vitamins in it. How did it jam all these vitamins in one pill? Nobody knows why. Nobody knows. I'm so excited to be in charge of elementary school Got Talent, said Mrs. Lane. This is going to be so much fun. Your brothers and sisters will be there. Your parents will be there. You might even get in the newspaper. Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Lane? Asked Mr. Clutch. Ryan raised his hand. Do armpit farts count as a talent? What's an armpit fart? Asked Mrs. Lane. All the boys started making armpit farts. With hundreds of us doing it at the same time, it sounds like an orchestra. Expect with armpits instead of music instruments. Look, there's AJ, Ryan, and Neil. Dude. Yes, I suppose I'll qualify as a talent, said Mrs. Lane. How about regular farts? I asked. No, said Mr. Claus firmly. Regular farts do not qualify as a talent. That's not fair, somebody shouted. Yeah, if armpit farts are a talent, then regular farts should be a talent too, said Neil the nude kid. That's discrimination against certain kinds of farts, said Alexia. Are we taught that discrimination is wrong? Yeah, asked Rick. That would be cool if there were an orchard of armpit farts. That's cool. Everybody started talking about farting and discrimination until Mr. Klutz made up the shut up peace sign. Are there any questions that don't concern farting? He asked. Emily raised her hand. What if somebody doesn't have a talent? She asked. Does that mean they can't be in a talent show? Mrs. Lane came down on the stage and went over to Emily. Everybody has a talent, sweetie, she said. I'm sure you can do something that most other people can't do. For instance, maybe you can play the spoons. Mrs. Lane pulled two spoons. Mrs. Lane pulled two spoons out of her pocket and started hitting them against her legs in rhythm. It was cool. I can't do that, said Emily. Well, maybe you can yodel, said Mrs. Lane. Mrs. Lane started yodeling. It was cool. I can't do that either, said Emily. Or maybe you can turn your eyelids inside out, said Mrs. Lane. And then she turned her eyelids inside out. That's weird. Ew, gross. I thought I was going to throw up. I can't do that either, said Emily. I bet you are talented at something, Miss Lane told Emily. You'll just have to find out what it is. Okay, asterisk. Boy, she sure says yeah a lot. With that, she picked a hula hoop up from the stage and started hula hooping while receiving the jury's address into Donald Duck voice. Mrs. Lane is weird. Chapter 4. No talking, please. We walked 1,100,000 miles back to our classroom with our teacher, Mr. Granite. Neil was the line leader. Michael was the door holder. This is so exciting, said Andrea. I can't wait to be in elementary school's Got Talent. Maybe I'll do some magic tricks, said Michael. I got a magic kit for Christmas. I'm going to do some tricks on my skateboard, said Alexia. That's a talent. No talking, please, said Mr. Granite. I could play the violin, said Neil, the new kid. I could eat something that isn't food, said Ryan. Eating isn't a talent, said Andrea. That depends on what you eat, said Ryan. If armpit farts can be a talent, said Michael, then eating can be a talent too. No talking, please, said Mr. Granite. What are you going to do in a talent show, AJ? Neil asked me. I really didn't know. I couldn't sing or dance or do magic tricks, but that's when I came up with the greatest idea in the history of the world. I could tell jokes, I said. Oh, yeah, said Andrea. Let's hear one. What's the difference between snot and broccoli? I asked. What? Everybody said. Kids will eat snot. That's disgusting, Arlo, and it's not even funny, said Andrea. It's not even a joke, it's a riddle. No talking, please, said Mr. Granite. What is Andrea's problem? If being annoying is a talent, she's the most talented kid in the world. Why can't a tank truck full of broccoli fall on her head? Look, there's a picture. They're all walking back to class. Looks like Mr. Granite's the same size as Neil. Same size. He's the same size as all the kids. I don't know what I can do in a talent show, said Emily. I don't have a talent. I feel sorry for Emily. It's hard to an outdoor talent at all, but she is annoying, so I didn't feel that sorry for her. I know what I'm going to do in a talent show, said Andrea. I'm going to sing a melody of song from the musical Anna. Oh no, not again. Andrea loves that show, Anna, and she never misses a chance to sing songs from it. She sings songs from Anna every day. If I had to listen to Tomorrow one more time, I think I'll go crazy. Can I sing with you in the talent show, Andrea asked Emily. I prefer to sing solo, Andrea replied. Why don't you sing so low that we can't hear you? I told Andrea. Oh, snap, said Ryan. No talking, please, said Mr. Granite. I don't get it. For the first few years of your life, all grown-ups do is to teach you how to talk. And then for the rest of your life, all they do is to tell you how to stop talking. What's up with that? Chapter 5. Next. The last thing I want to do after school is to stay after school. The last thing I want to do after school is to stay after school, but this day was different. As soon as the 3 o'clock bell rang, the gang and me rushed to the all-purpose room to try out for Elementary School's Got Talent. I don't know why they call it the all-purpose room. It can't be used for all purposes. I mean, you can't go skydiving in there. Anyway, lots of kids in all the grades from 1st through 5th showed up to try out. We had to wait in line behind a bunch of first grade munchkins, so we could write our names on the sign-up sheet. I see we have a lot of talented students at elementary school, said Mrs. Lane. I can't wait to see y'all what to show you your talent. Mr. Claus was there too. I guess he wanted to make sure nobody tried to do an act that involves farting. Can you tell us what the secret grand prize will be? Asked Andrea, who loves to win prizes. If I told you, it wouldn't be a secret, Mrs. Lane replied. She took the sign-up sheet and sat in the front row. Each of us had 1 minute to do our act. Okay, Mrs. Lane said to the first kid on the list, show me what you got. It was a second grade girl with red hair. She said she was double jointed. Then she got down on the floor and wrapped both of her legs around her neck at the same time. That's a talent. Who knew? Look, here's a picture. Look. Next! Shouted Mrs. Lane. 2 fourth-grade boys climbed up on stage and acted out a scene from Star Wars. It ended with them fighting with lightsabers. It was pretty cool. Next, a girl from the first grade came out. I can name all the months of the year that have the letter Z in them, she said. None of the months of the year have a Z in them, Mrs. Lane told the girl. There, I did it. Next. I can write my name in the air with my butt, said the first grade boy. Next! After that, some fifth graders did a skit about 4 bananas that go out for a walk and are suddenly attacked by meteors. It made no sense at all. They were followed by a bunch of clumsy girl dancers. Bad lip cinchers, terrible rappers, and a dumb-headed spun plates on a stick. I slapped my head. Man, those acts were horrible. They should call the show Elementary School's Got No Talent. It was going to be a kin for one of us, for me or one of our gang to win the secret grand prize. But we had to sit through all the dumb acts. It was taking 1,100,000 hours. I had looked up a few jokes in the joke book I had in my backpack, but I didn't know if they were funny or not. I was getting nervous. Next, shouted Mrs. Lane. Michael got up on stage and did a magic trick where he made some flowers pop out of his sleeve. It was cool. Want to see me make a candy bar disappear? Asked Michael. Sure, said Mrs. Lane. Michael took a candy bar out of his pocket and ate it. See, he said, I made it disappear. Next. Ryan came out. I can communicate with dolphins, he said. Do you have a dolphin with you? Asked Mrs. Lane. No, Ryan said. I talk with them on the phone. Next. Look at the picture. It was Emily's turn. She looked even more nervous than me. I would like to do the dance from The Little Mermaid, she said. Emily started to dance, and to tell you the truth, she wasn't all that bad, but right in the middle she spun around and fell down. It's funny when people fall down. Nobody knows why. I try not to laugh because it's not nice to laugh when people fall down. And when they start crying like Emily did, it's not funny at all. Mrs. Lane came up on stage and put her arm around Emily. You know, Elf, I fell down just like that when I was on America's Not Stupid, she said. You did? Emily said, wiping her eyes. What happened? Everybody laughed at me, said Mrs. Lane. I was humiliated, and I messed up when I was on. Okay, look at the picture. Emily's crying, and Mrs. Lane told her sad story. And I messed up when I was on. Are you smarter than a tuna? Too. It's okay to mess up. We all do it. Next! She shouted. Emma started crying. Mrs. Lane went back to her seat in the front row. Some kid came out and burped the whole alphabet in A, B, C order. It was gross, but also hilarious. Next! Andrea sang the Tomorrow song. It was totally lame. Next! Finally, it was my turn. I was nervous when I climbed up on stage. I would like to tell some jokes, I said. Go ahead, AJ, said Mrs. Lane. Why did the monkey fall out of the tree? I asked. Why? Everybody replied. Because it was dead, I said. Nobody laughed. I guess this crowd doesn't go for dead monkey jokes. I tried another one. I like to study for tests underwater, I said. Maybe that's why I'm below sea level. Nobody laughed. Get it? I asked. Sea level? Sea level? Sea level? Maybe I should have tested my jokes out in advance. My forehead was starting to get sweaty. 30 seconds, AJ, said Mrs. Lane. Did you know that I have holes in my underwear? I asked. Well, how else will I get my holes into them, my legs into them? Nobody laughed. I guess I heard the sound of nobody laughed. I thought I heard the sound of crickets out in the all-purpose room. Look, there's a picture. There's all the kids, and AJ's nervous because nobody's laughing at his jokes. This was terrible. Usually all I have to do is say the word under and kids start laughing. Next. When everybody was finished, Mrs. Lane stood up and gave us a standing ovation. I really loved your acts, she said. You should rehearse. Asterisk. Well, I guess you couldn't have given us a standing ovation if he was still sitting down. I really loved your acts, she said. You all should rehearse as much as possible. Before our talent show next week. Oh, before you go, I have some news for you. There's going to be a surprise guest at the talent show. Did you hear that? Andrea shouted. There's going to be a surprise guest at the talent show. There's going to be a surprise guest at the talent show. There's going to be a surprise guest at the talent show. In case you were wondering, everybody was saying there's going to be. Everybody was saying. In case you're wondering, everyone was saying there's going to be a surprise guest at the talent show. Who will be the surprise guest? asked Alexia. If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, said Mrs. Lane. I love surprises because you never know what's going to happen. That's what they're called, surprises. I'm sure that the surprise guest was going to be Mr. Hine. He used to be a music teacher, but then he made a hit rap and record and became famous. Okay, let's call it a day, said Mrs. Lane. Y'all work on your acts, and I'll see you at the rehearsal tomorrow. Be here at 4 o'clock sharp. That means exactly at 4 o'clock. Chapter 6. Fantastic news. I showed up the next day for rehearsal at 4 o'clock sharp. The only problem was Mrs. Lane wasn't there. Where's Mrs. Lane? Where's Mrs. Lane? Where's Mrs. Lane? Where's Mrs. Lane? In case you were wondering, everybody was asking where Mrs. Lane was. We waited around for 1,100,000 minutes. Something was definitely wrong. I hope Mrs. Lane is okay, said Emily, who worries about everything. You'll never believe who walked into that door at that moment. Nobody. It would hurt if you walked into a door, but you'll never believe who walked into the doorway. It was Mr. Klutz. Where's Mrs. Lane? We all asked him. She's not coming today, he told us. I had to fire her. What? I'm sorry to tell you this, Mr. Klutz. The elementary school's Got Talent is canceled. What? Everybody shouted. I had no idea how much money it costs to put on a show like that, said Mr. Klutz. We need to hire a professional lighting and sound company. We have to pay for extra security. We have to get a permit from City Hall to keep the school open all night. We have to print up programs. And of course, we have to pay Mrs. Lane. It's all very expensive. We just don't have that much money in the school budget. Bummer in the summer. I was just trying to get excited about the talent show, Ryan said. Me too, said Michael. Everybody was sad. We started gathering up our stuff to go home. I'm sorry, kids, Mr. Klutz said. Maybe we'll have a talent show next year. Look, everyone's sad. It's sad time. But you'll never believe who walked into that door at that moment. Nobody! But you'll never believe who walked into the door at that moment. Nobody! I thought we already went over that already. Mrs. Lane came walking in the door. She was balancing a baseball bat on one foot at the same time as she was balancing an egg on a spoon in her mouth. It was amazing. I have fantastic news, y'all, she shouted. A company is going to sponsor elementary school's Got Talent. Yippee! Everybody shouted. Sponsor, I said. I asked, what does that mean? It means they're going to give us money to put on the show, said Mrs. Lane. Yippee! I shouted. What company? Porky's Pork Sausages, she told us. Okay, look, there's a picture of Mrs. Lane. I just got off the phone with the owner of the company, Mr. Porky. Well, if that's true, said Mr. Klutz, elementary school's Got Talent will go on as scheduled. Yippee! Everybody shouted. Hooray for Porky's Pork Sausages! They saved the talent show. Okay, said Mrs. Lane. I'll see you all at 4 o'clock sharp tomorrow for rehearsal. Chapter 7. Who Needs TV? I showed up for rehearsal at 4 o'clock sharp the next day. And guess what? Mrs. Lane wasn't there again. Where's Mrs. Lane? Asked Alexia. Where's Mrs. Lane? Asked Neil the nude kid. Where's Mrs. Lane? Asked Michael. In case you were wondering, everybody was asking where Mrs. Lane was. But then she came in. She was jumping on a pogo stick while dribbling a basketball and playing Mary Had a Little Lamb on a harmonica all at the same time. It was amazing. I have fantastic news, she shouted. Are you ready for this? Mr. Porky of Porky Park Sausages just told me he's going to put Elementary School's Got Talent on TV. The girls started screaming. Eek, we're going to be on TV. We're going to be on TV. We're going to be on TV. In case you were wondering, all the girls were saying we were going to be on TV. Being on TV must be the greatest thing in the history of the world. I've seen people jump into pools of mud to get on TV. I've seen people eat bugs to get on TV. People will do anything to get on TV. Mr. Klutz came running in with 3 of the teachers, Miss Hannah, Mrs. Ruby, and Miss Small. Look, there they are. Weird, elementary school's gonna be on TV, shouted Miss Hannah, our art teacher. Can we be in it too? I can make finger shadows of circus animals. I can play the nose flute, said Miss Small, our gym leader. I can do impersonations of nursery rhyme characters, said Mrs. Ruby, our librarian. Yes, teachers can participate, said Mrs. Lane, but there's something I need to tell you all about. Mr. Porky has 3 demands that must be met before he agrees to put Elementary School's Got Talent on TV. What are his demands? Asked Mr. Clyde. Well, first of all, said Mrs. Lane, he wants a panel of judges to decide the winner of this talent show, and he wants to be one of the judges. I have no problem with that, said Mr. Clyde. What are his other 2 demands? His second demand is that he wants every act in the talent show to mention Porky Park Sausages at least once, said Mrs. Lane. Well, okay, I suppose we can do that, said Mr. Klutz. After all, his company is sponsoring his show. A bunch of other grown-ups came running in. Mr. Docker, Dr. Brad, and Miss Lazar. Mr. Mackey, Miss Coco, Ms. Leakey, and Mrs. Cooney. We heard that elementary school's got talent is going to be on TV, yelled Mr. Docker, our science teacher. I can receipt the periodic table of elements in order. I can tap dance, said Miss Coco, our gifted and talented teacher. Look. Asterisk. Look it up. It's an asterisk. I can throw my voice, somebody said, but we didn't know who it was because they just threw their voice. Yes, you can be in a talent show too, said Mrs. Lane. Eek, screamed our nurse, Mrs. Cooney. I need to fix my hair. Why? Is it broken? I asked. Hold on a minute, said Mr. Klutz. What is Mr. Porky's 3rd demand? Oh, yes, there's one more thing that said Mr. Klutz. Wait, no. Yes, there's one more thing, said Mr. Porky wanted before he'll put Elementary School's Got Talent on TV. said Mrs. Lane. He thinks it will be more exciting if the panel of judges could hit a big gong if they don't like an act. And if a contestant gets gonged, he or she gets thrown into a tank full of sharks. What? That got to be the dumbest idea in the history of the world. Is he nuts? Nuts? Asked Mr. Klutz. Mr. Porky wants to feed our students to sharks. That's bananas, said Miss Hannah. That's loopy, said Mrs. Rupee. Well, it doesn't have to be sharks, said Mrs. Lane. It could be, I don't know, vultures. He wants to feed our students to vultures, asked Mr. Klutz. That's off the wall, said Miss Moll. That's loony, said Mrs. Cooney. That's bizarre, said Ms. Lazar. Look, it's a picture of AJ getting thrown into a tank full of sharks. Well, what if they were thrown into a pit of burning lava, said Mrs. Lane. That's wacky, said Mr. Mackey. That's loco, said Mrs. Coco. That's freaky, said Mrs. Leakey. Like all of those you heard that the teacher was saying are actual real books. So here's an example. Miss Leakey is freaky, or Ms. Coco is loco, or Mr. Mackey is wacky. All those books. Where will we possibly get a pit of burning lava anyway? Asked Mr. Klutz. Let's go to rent a pit of burning lava, said Mrs. Lane. You can rent anything. Are you off your rocker? Asked Mr. Doctor. Have you gone mad? Asked Dr. Brad. That's it, said Mr. Klutz angrily. I'll give in to Mr. Porky's two demands, but now I've got to draw the line. This is a school, not some silly TV show. You tell Mr. Porky that we say no. We're gonna do Elementary School's Got Talent without him. We don't care whatever or not it's on TV. Who needs TV anyway? Yeah, who needs TV? Yeah, who needs TV? Yeah, who needs TV? In case you were wondering, everybody was saying, yeah, who needs TV? Wait a minute, I need TV. And I think I know who that is. Mr. Who do you think it was? Do you think it was Dr. Brad, the principal? Or Miss Loco? Miss Coco? Mr. Klutz? Well, let's see. Chapter 8, The World Around Me. In the end, Mr. Porky backed. It was Mr. Porky. Mr. Porky backed down from his third demand. He agreed to put Elementary School Got Talent on TV even if the contestants were not attacked by sharks, vultures, or burning lava. That was a relief because I was sure to be the one who would get attacked by sharks, vultures, or burning lava. Nobody was laughing at my jokes at our last rehearsal. I was getting really nervous. Elementary School's Got Talent was the next night. I didn't have an act. Miss Lane pulled me aside at the end of the rehearsal. You know, nobody tells plain old jokes anymore, AJ, she told me. These days, comedians do what is called observational humor. What's that? I asked. They sort of observe the world around them and talk about how funny it is, said Mrs. Lane. Mrs. Lane, maybe you should try that, AJ. I went home and observed the world around me, but my house wasn't very funny. My backyard wasn't very funny. My bedroom wasn't very funny. I didn't have anything funny to say. I thought about it long and hard. I thought about it so hard that my brain hurt. Then I came to my decision. I was going to drop out of the talent show. Somebody else could win the secret grand prize. So just Mrs. Lane telling AJ that he should try what he just did. Tell some funny things about the world around you. Chapter 9, The Big Night. Finally, the big night arrived. Even though I wasn't going to be in a talent show anymore, I came to school early and went backstage to help out with the lights, props, and costumes and stuff. There was TV cameras all over the place. Everybody was nervous. I peeked at the audience from behind the curtain. The all-purpose room was packed. There must have been 1,100,000 people there, and 1,100,000,000 would be watching. We're going to be famous, India said to anyone who would listen. I'm so excited. Mr. Klutz climbed up on stage. I saw the red lights on top of the TV cameras go on. That meant we were on TV. Some guy held up a sign that said applause, and the audience started clapping and cheering. Welcome to Elementary School's Got Talent, Mr. Klutz read from a cue card. My name is Mr. Klutz, the school principal. Before we get to our amazing talent, I want to say one thing. Folks, do you like pork sausages? I sure do. And when I want a pork sausage, I read Porky's pork sausages. They're the best sausages in the world. Okay, look, there's Mr. Klutz. He's holding up a box of Porky pork sausages, and there's the applause guy. Sausages in the world, made with the finest pork and no artificial ingredients. So when you want the pork sausages, reach for Porky's pork sausages. That guy held up the applause sign again, and Mr. Klutz held up a package of Porky pork sausages. Everybody started clapping and cheering. Now it's time to announce the secret grand prize of Elementary School's Got Talent, said Mr. Klutz. Everybody got quiet because they wanted to know what the secret grand prize would be. The winner of our talent show will receive a trophy and a year's supply of Porky's pork sausages. The guy held up the applause sign, and everybody started clapped and cheered wherever they liked Porky's pork sausages or not. Now it's time to introduce our panel of judges, said Mr. Klutz. Our first judge will be Mr. Porky, the owner of Porky's pork sausages. A short, fat, bald guy came out and waved to the crowd. He actually looked like a little pig. Look, there's a picture of Mr. Porky. Our second judge will be Mrs. Lane, said Mr. Klutz. Mrs. Lane came out on roller skates while juggling flaming torches. She is really talented. It was Mrs. Lane who put this whole show together, said Mr. Klutz. Would you like to say a few words? She sang a few words at the tune of Home on the Range. It went like this. Oh, give me some pork with a knife and a fork and potatoes that have been French fried. It makes a great lunch, and I'll eat a whole bunch with a plate full of beans on the side. Porky's pork sausages, I'd rather eat them than play. And when I am done, I'll take one on a bun to bring home and eat the next day. Mrs. Lane is a really good singer. Everybody clapped and cheered for her. And now it's time to introduce our third judge, Mr. Klutz, who just happened to be our surprise celebrated guest. It's going to be Mr. Hind. 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 In case you're wondering, everybody was saying it was going to be Mr. Hind, but everybody was wrong, so boo boo on everybody. You all know him, said Mr. Claus. You all love him. Put your hands together for the year's hottest young rap sensation, Crazy Z. Crazy! What? Crazy is the coolest kid in the history of the world. A few months ago, he came out with the rap song called The Christmas Klepto, and it was all over the radio, TV, YouTube, magazines, everywhere. He's a superstar. Eek! All the girls started screaming, fainting, freaking out. I love him, some girls shouted. Marry me, Crazy Z! Look, there's a picture of Crazy Z. And everyone, all the girls, boys are all happy. That's right, said Mr. Claus. Crazy Z is in the house. Everybody went nuts. Crazy Z came out from the back of the all-purpose room. He was high-fiving kids and signing autographs. The three judges sat at a table in front of the stage. Mr. Claus explained the rules. Each child, blah, 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 2 minutes, blah, 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 blah. At the end, blah, 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 blah. Please do not take flash pictures, blah, 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 blah. Our judges will decide, blah, 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 blah. He went on for about 1,100,000 hours. Nobody was paying attention. Okay, this is the moment you've all been waiting for, said Mr. Claus. It's time to bring out on the talent. That is right after the short message about Porky's pork sausages. Chapter 10, Awesome-nificent. We had to sit through a boring commercial that explained why Porky's pork sausages were the best pork sausages in the world. Then Mrs. Lane introduced the acts one at a time. First, some boy came out and named all the presidents of the United States in order to the tune of Yankee Doodle. Instead of James Polk, he said James Pork. Then some kid came out and wiggled her ears while she opened pistachio nuts inside her mouth without using her hands. That was weird. After that, 5 boys came out and banged on some garbage cans while shouting out the word pork. I guess they couldn't think of anything else to do. It was Alexia's turn. She came out with her skateboard and we all gave her a big round of applause. Alexia is awesome on her skateboard. She did a bunch of cool tricks. I call this next trick the sausage, she said. Then she did a handstand on her skateboard. It was cool. Look, there's a picture, a handstand on her skateboard. Then it was cool, and she got more applause. That's wonderful, said Mrs. Lane. Mrs. Lane introduced Andrea next, and little Miss Know-It-all sang that awful tomorrow song. But instead of singing about the sun will come out tomorrow, she sang the pork will come out tomorrow. It was embarrassing. Too bad Andrea wasn't thrown into a tank full of sharks. Look, there's Andrea singing while Mr. Pork is watching. There were a few more lame acts, and Ryan came in and ate a chocolate-covered grasshopper. Ugh, gross. Emily did her little dance from The Little Mermaid, and this time she didn't fall down. Neil, the new kid, played the violin. Fantastic, said Mrs. Lane after each act. Next, a bunch of our teachers came out in giant hot dog bun costumes and put on a skit about sausages. That was amazing, said Mrs. Lane. Next up, we have a third grader in Mr. Grant's class who is going to do magic for us. Put your hands together for Michael, the Awesome-nificent. We all cheered, even though Awesome-nificent is is totally not a word. Michael made it up by putting awesome and magnificent together. Asterisk. I told him it should be awesome, but he wouldn't listen to me. He came out wearing a black tuxedo. He looked like a penguin. Thank you, Michael said. Watch me stand on my head. He drew a big picture of his face on a piece of paper, put it on the floor, and stepped on it. Everybody laughed. Look, there's a picture. It's magic, said Michael. I will now make the ping-pong balls defy the laws of gravity. He stood behind a desk and made the ping-pong ball float in the air above it. It was cool, even though it was obvious that Michael was holding a hairdryer under the desk. It's magic, Michael said, while everyone clapped. You know, Porky's poor sausages come from pigs, so I'll now make a pig disappear. Michael held up a red cloth and waved it around. Then he pulled it away like a bullfighter. It's magic, Michael said. Want me to do it again? Hey, you didn't make a pig disappear, some kid in the crowd yelled. Sure I did, Michael said. It was an invisible pig. He took a deep bow. And then Mrs. Lane roller skated out on the stage again. Let's hear it for Michael the Awesome-nificent. Okay, our next talented performer is another third grader from Mr. Gordon's class. Let's give him a warm welcome. Sit back and enjoy the comedy stylings of AJ! What? Chapter 11, Murder at the Talent Show. I thought I was going to die. It's your turn, dude, Alexia said to me backstage. Get out there. But I'm not in the talent show anymore, I told her. I dropped out. The audience was clapping their hands. Mrs. Lane looked over at me. One more time, she announced. Sit back and enjoy the comedy stylings of AJ. I wanted to run away to Antarctica and go live with the penguins. Mrs. Lane roller skated over to me. What's the matter, she asked. I don't have an act, I told her. I dropped out. You never told me you were dropping out, she said. Forgot. In the audience, people were stamping their feet and chanting, AJ! 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 They want you, AJ, said Mrs. Lane. You can't let them down. You heard my jokes, I told her. They were terrible. I'm afraid to get out there. Mrs. Lane got on one knee and put her arm around me. You know what, she said. When I was on Are You Smarter Than a Turnip, I was afraid to go out there. When I was on America's Not Stupid, I was afraid to go out there. I was afraid to go out there when I was on America's Next Top Garbage Collector, Keeping Up with the Librarians, and Who Wants to Win a Million Pizzas, too. But you know what? I went out there anyway. And you won? I asked. No, I lost on every one of those shows, she told me. But you are going to be a star. Now go out there and kill him. Kill him? I asked. I don't want to kill anybody. No, Mrs. Lane said. When a comedian makes the audience laugh, to say he killed them, and when nobody laughs, to say he died out there. Wow, I didn't know that comedy was so violent. AJ! 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 People were chanting. This is no time to chicken out, AJ, Mrs. Lane told me. The show must go on. Now go out there and kill him. With that, she shoved me out on stage. Everybody clapped. I looked around at all the people. They were all looking back at me. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I had to think fast. Hi, everybody, I said, tapping the microphone to make sure it worked. Hi, the whole audience replied. I'm not supposed to be here. Everybody laughed, even though I didn't say anything funny. This is weird. This is weird, I said. What's weird? Somebody hollered. Everything, I said. The school, the teachers, the all-purpose room. Hey, why did you call it the all-purpose room? Anyway, it can't be used for all purpose. all purposes. I mean, you can't go skydiving in here. Look, there's a picture. There's a picture of AJ. He's talking on stage. He looks kind of happy. Oh, and do you see the second row? That's Mr. Klutz. There, second row. Some people actually laughed at that. I looked around the audience and saw Mr. Klutz in the second row. You know what's really weird? I asked. Mr. Klutz, our principal, he's got no hair at all. I mean none. What's up with that? Mr. Klutz drew back his head and laughed. Somebody put a spotlight on him and it reflected off his shiny head. How, I'm going blind from the glare, I said, covering my eyes. Everybody laughed. Mr. Klutz must have saved a lot of money on shampoo and combs. They should use his head to bounce TV signals out into outer space. Everybody was cracking up. I looked backstage. The whole gang was behind the curtain, was giving me the thumbs up sign. Mr. Klutz is nuts, I continued. Remember the time he got his foot caught in the rope and he got stuck on the top of the flagpole? You should have been there. You're all glued to our seats. Well, not really. That would be weird. Why would anyone want to glue himself to a seat? How would you get the glue off? I had to stop for a few seconds because everybody was laughing. So, especially Mr. Klutz. But seriously, I said, this other time Mr. Klutz was climbing the side of the school when he got scared and couldn't go up or down. So our custodian, Miss Lazar, went up on the roof with a toilet bowl plugger, stuck it on his bald head, and lowered him to the ground. Miss Lazar should get the Nobel Prize. If you ask me, that's a prize they give out to people who don't have bells. The audience was eating it up. You rock, AJ, somebody shouted. I told a few more stories about the weird things grown-ups have done at our school, like the time our groundskeeper, Mr. Burke, discovered gold buried in the playground, and the time our security guard, Officer Spence, threw all the teachers in the jail for stealing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. When I couldn't think of other weird stories to tell, I looked over at Mrs. Lane. Keep going, she said. I noticed Mr. Porky at the judge's table. He had an angry look on his face. That's when I remembered that every act had to mention pork sausages. There's just one more thing I want to say, I said. I love Porky's pork sausages! I ran off the stage, and everybody hugged me. It was the greatest night of my life. AJ, you killed them, Mrs. Lane said. Chapter 12, The Big Surprise Ending. There were a few more acts after that, but I wasn't paying any attention to them. Everybody was coming over to slap me on the back and tell me how much they liked my comedy routine. You're totally gonna win this thing, dude. You were awesome. Okay, look. Before that could happen, we had to have the big grand final. Everybody who was part of the show, kids, teachers, judges, the state crew, came out on stage. We all sang the Porky's Pork Sausages theme song. It was loud. Some of the teachers were dancing. The crowd was clapping and stamping their feet. Crazy Z was playing bongos on Mr. Klutz's head. It was cool. Look, there's a picture. That's Crazy Z, and that's Mr. Klutz. See what Crazy is doing on Mr. Klutz's head. It was cool. And it was over. Mr. Klutz made the shut up peace sign and asked Mr. Porky to come over to the microphone. He had a trophy in one hand and an envelope in his other hand. Thank you, Mr. Porky said. This has been a wonderful evening. It's clear that you have a lot of talent talent here at elementary school, and you all love Porky's pork sausages. But now it's time to announce the winner of Elementary School's Got Talent. I hope I win. 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 The winner is... Everybody got quiet as Mr. Porky tore open the envelope. You could have heard a pin drop in the all-purpose room. Well, that is if anybody had pins with them. But why would anybody bring pins to school, to a talent show? That would be weird. Anyway, there was electricity in there. Well, not really, because if there was electricity in there, we will all have been electrocuted. What I mean to say, everybody in the audience was on pins and needles. Well, not really. They were sitting on seats. But on pins and needles. Well, not really. They were sitting on seats. It would I would have hurt if they were on pins and needles. I bet you're dying to know who won the talent show, aren't you? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I'll tell you. The winner is, said Mr. Porky, Mrs. Penny Lane. What? But she's one of the judges, Ryan shouted. That's not fair, shouted Michael. Everybody started yelling, screaming, and freaking out. Mrs. Lane had a big smile on her face as she roller skated over to get her prize. The talent show is supposed to be for kids, complained Andrea. Grown-ups can't win. Says who? Said Mrs. Lane as she grabbed the trophy. Give me that. Boo! My daughter should have been the winner, shouted one of the parents in the audience. Miss Lane is a fraud. She must have made a secret deal with Mr. Porky, somebody else shouted. That's the only reason she won. What a scam. Mrs. Lane took the microphone. I'd like to thank all the little people who made this possible, she said. I was a loser on Are You Smarter Than a Turnip? I was a loser on America's Not Stupid. And I was a loser on Keeping Up with the Librarians and America's Next Top Garbage Collector and Who Wants to Win a Million Pizzas and Undercover Mother. But tonight I'm the winner, whether you like it or not. The talent show is fixed, shouted one of the parents. Stop her! Run for a penny, shouted Mr. Porky. A bunch of our angry parents got up from their seats and came charging toward the stage. Mrs. Lane roller skated towards the exit door, grabbing a box of pork sausages on her way out. And that was the last we ever saw of her. There's Miss Lane. Maybe the parents will catch up with Mrs. Lane and take the trophy away from her. Maybe we'll have another talent show next year. Maybe Mr. Klutz will stop hiding in the bushes. Maybe Mrs. Lane will stop saying yeah and turning her eyelids inside out. Maybe Mrs. Cooney will fix her broken hair. Maybe people will stop discriminating against different kinds of farts. Maybe Mr. Porky will get attacked by sharks, vultures, or burning lava. Maybe Andrea will finally stop singing songs from Annie. Maybe we'll get some free pork sausages. Maybe people will stop eating bugs to get on TV. Maybe Michael will make a pig disappear. Maybe monkeys will stop dropping dead and falling out of trees. Maybe they'll use Mr. Klutz's head to bounce TV signals into outer space. Maybe people will stop running into doors. Maybe we'll get to skydive in the all-purpose room. But it won't be easy. The end. I'm done reading the book. The next book I'm going to be reading is a fairy tale book, a book that has lots of fairy tales in them. I'm going to be reading 2 each day. Two stories each video. I'm going to be reading a fairy tale story for the next book. Just 2 stories. In the next video, I'm going to be reading 2 more stories. 2 more fairy tale stories. I have one big book that has lots of fairy tale stories in them. So I'm going to be reading that next time. Stay safe and take care. Bye.